So it's like, what are the topics that are coming up? And I had finished reading the Ramtha book, A Beginner's Guide to Creating Reality. This one where, he's got that picture, is that Leonardo's picture of God and reaching through the mind of the person. And I find that to be very symbolic. But then at the very end of the book, there's a glossary. And it's like, I've never read the glossary. Like, I don't need to know the definition of consciousness, but reading this glossary was really like opening for a different language. Like Joe said, find your language. And this is Ramtha's language. This is what he would define consciousness as, or prophecy as. And it was just, it was enlightening, you could say. I wanted to share the definition of prophecy because it stood out to me. A prophecy is a potential future timeline based on the facts of the present moment. Prophecies should always accompany the statement, as it is seen now, for they are always subject to change as the collective consciousness changes. Yeah. So it's like you may glimpse the future according to the level of consciousness of this present moment. And you may follow it and it may fully present itself as true, or there'll be different changes and shifts inside of you, inside of the people around you that bring out different pathways and different doorways, and you go down these different paths. And where it's not that you were wrong with what you saw, it's just that it changed or you changed. And Joe had a couple of really good things to say on that. I'm not sure if that will come through like as eloquently as it did this morning when I was like, that was perfect. Should have recorded that.
It's always like that. She'll bring up something and it's like the energy is there and all the channeling and stuff. And I'm not really focusing, and then it just starts flowing. And so I just sort of drop into it, and it's just sort of a relaxed conversation. It's like I'm sometimes not even trying to teach, and things will just trigger open, and it's just spontaneous. So it just takes me into something really deep, and then she wants to discuss or talk about it. So we'll drop into a certain kind of energy that expands it. And then I'll discuss things with her, and then it just sort of cuts off because it's not something I've ever really controlled in my life. This is where people try to get me, well, you need to do this or say this and say that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like when we were there in that's something that came through in the moment. It wasn't something I was doing. And for whatever reason, the universe felt it was very important. And this is where it turns on and turns off. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are trying to be plugged in and over, long extended periods of time in the day. And I'm like, you have so many other things to do where you need to be conscious, aware, and doing whatever. So it just sort of goes in and out, and spirits know when they need to come in or go out. So in the morning, I like lighting incense. Like this morning, I said a prayer and invited spirits in for the day, for the meditation, for whatever needs to go on. And I always ask that I'm grounded and whatever the light or whatever spirits want to support and do, and to bless each person that they'll receive and get things too. So I'd sort of do these prayers, and then things will sort of go on. And a lot of times they use Cindy as a catalyst to trigger things, activate different things. Sometimes some of the things is like I was explaining to her about some of the memories lately I've been going to when I was a child with my granddad and other things, and how the memory would come in, and I'm like, you don't think about it, it's just inside your mind. So I just walk through it. And I'm like, okay, this is here again. Is there something I haven't seen or learned from whatever I'm looking at? So it sort of slows down in different ways. Mm. And I reevaluate it, and I try to see what it's about and what it had come through or what had I learned. And a lot of times I'll share things with Cindy. So while I was doing that, it's like people choose certain kinds of things and stuff goes on. And as I was explaining that, I was shown dice. And these dice, somebody's hands, and these dice left, and it hit the, on the board, and it started slowly bouncing and moving, and it started going into slow motion. And I was explaining to her this slow motion activity with the dice and how people perceive things. And they think it's this way, and actually everything is really slow motion. And like you're waiting because in your thought, it's like, oh, it's going to hit a 7 and I'm going to win. It's like, oh yeah, I know it, and you threw this dice, but now everything in slow motion and you're watching, it's like, ooh, that 1 went by. Ooh, that 6 went by. And now the 5's coming up, and is it going to be the 2 and the 5? And you're trying to control this, and the universe is bouncing it around. And these are sort of things that come in life when we're choosing, like the spirits will come in, showing things and other things, and you get glimpses of them. But when it stops and that number has landed and it's there. And so I was trying to walk her through this whole scenario they were playing around in my mind, because these things will just pop in out of nowhere. I find it really, really exciting. I get like this little kid, I get really excited, right? Like, it's like, how do I explain this and put this into words? And then it just starts coming out of me really, really fast. And it's not something I ever really tried to do. So she ended up writing down some of the things I had said.
Oh, well, reading it right now, it sounds so much different than when I wrote it down. So what I wrote down was when Joe does clearings. Yeah, no, it relates, but it doesn't relate. It's a little bit different. So a lot of people will see Joe's clearings as readings, and they want readings of the future. Like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to be? He sees them as clearings, and he says, I will release things from around you, and then you will choose. And those things that you choose will change your reality. So how Joe sees it for you right now is all depending upon that consciousness level where you're at right now. But then as those things lift, it's like you have these opportunities to make these choices along your path. And you're the one that's creating it. And it's not Joe per se. It's like you're choosing to walk through those doors of change. And so he releases the energy that has you trapped in something. And then you get to choose and change things as you go from there. So it's a little bit the same thing, because you can receive visions for yourself for your own future. And that's what we do in this energy focus group that we do. Joe says every time that we're all focusing on him, he asks inside, is there something I can see for myself?
Or is there something I need to see? I like saying need, if there's something there that's important. Because spirits know I'm busy doing stuff. So if I get really busy and I'm distracted, there's something there I'm not really paying attention to. So here I get to pause while everybody is focused on me, and I get to just focus on me. And sometimes that will open up something and I'll see really, really amazing stuff. Sometimes it's like, oh, I wish I could share this with everybody, what I'm seeing, right? And I'm in my mind and I'm listening to everybody channeling, and the energy's coming through, and I'm just sitting there and and I'm putting this in the memory banks wherever they are, but I'm still watching this movie inside my head at times. And some of them are really, really amazing after the meditation. Like, we used to do the meditation, we'd drive all the way to Kelowna. It's over an hour to get to Kelowna. We get there and we'd hold the meditation till about 9 at night, and then sort of shut things down, then drive all the way home. And on the way home, I would start sharing some of these things that would go on inside me with Cindy, and it would open up really a lot. And it'd be a really cool discussion as we're driving home, and the energy's really pumped from the meditation. And spirits are just doing stuff. And then on the way home, sometimes I'm also glimpsing other things that maybe is going to go on tomorrow or something. So that little TV part that we call intuition or psychic abilities or third eye or whatever, it opens and closes, and it has a natural way of doing it. It's very, very intelligent. I always say, if you're driving a car or you're doing something, ask them to be grounded. So you're not leaving your body, or you're way off in the universe and you're doing 200 miles down the highway. You want to be sure you're in your body when this stuff's going on. So I always say, really make sure it's like, okay, I want every day at 2 o'clock. This is an opening for me. So at 2 o'clock every day, I'm going to meditate. and this is a time, and I'm going to sit down in this, and the spirits are going to come in and they're going to do stuff. The more you do this, the more it opens up. And it's a nice, place where you can ground and actually do this. And they know each time you're going to receive and they're going to come in and do that.